A startling admission aimed straight at Barry's Arctic set the entire premiere buzzing, and the ripple hasn't calmed since. A tiny voice with a big personality, Sadie Dorek-Yujit, stood on the crimson path and delivered a line that made every microphone tilt a little closer. He said Barry's was extremely handsome, but that his ego was enormous, and that when he grows up he doesn't want to be like that. In a space where headlines are born in seconds, those words detonated like a flashbulb going off in a dark room. What happened next, how Barry's handled it, and where Elsin Sengu stood in the storm are what everyone's asking. You've arrived at Turkish Spotlight Secrets, where we gather the whispers, test them against the light, and tell you what truly moved the room. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe so you never miss what the cameras don't fully capture. The evening belonged to Sleepyhead, unveiled under the grand ceiling of the Ataturk Cultural Center, a venue that seems to turn every entrance into myth. Photographers shouted for angles, stylists smoothed last-minute hems, and the energy sharpened the second Barry stepped out. This was more than an appearance. After a break from the big screen, he was returning as both director and lead, and the red carpet lit up as if it were acknowledging the scale of that risk. By his side and just a step behind the flashing chaos, Elsin Sengu moved with quiet composure, the kind that comes from experience and a certain defiant tenderness. They didn't need to perform together, the ease of their shared space was already a performance. Not far behind, hand held by his mother and then set free to enjoy his moment, came the small comet of the night, Sadie Dorek-Yujit, the boy who plays the childhood version of Barry's character. He has that kind of face you don't forget, the candid brightness that makes adults lean down and listen. He was fielding questions like a pro, tossing smiles as if they were confetti, when someone asked what he learned from working with Barry's on set. He paused, that small, dramatic beat only children can pull off without trying, and then said, almost sing-song and utterly clear, that Barry's looks amazing but acts like he's full of himself. Then came the kicker, when he grows up, he won't be like that. The air snapped a little. The laughter came, but it carried a sharp edge. Within minutes, clips jumped from phone to phone, sliding into timelines across platforms. On Twitter, a thread branded him tiny but truthful. On Instagram, edits of the quote looped over slow-motion footage of the carpet. On TikTok, the soundbite became the day's soundtrack. Even the kids said it, some teased, while others scolded the adults for turning a child's candor into a verdict. He's a child, he's simply honest, a user posted, garnering thousands of likes. It didn't matter that nuance rarely survives the internet's hunger. What mattered was that the word ego stuck to Barry's name again, as if it were a magnet and not a rumor. But inside the premiere, reality was more textured. When the microphones reached Barry's after the screening, someone inevitably raised the quote. He didn't flinch. A small smile crossed his face, the kind that neither confirms nor denies, and he said he adored Sadie, that the boy was clever and bright, and that the future was lucky to have him. No defensiveness, no lecture, just a gentle sidestep that made half the room nod. As for Elsin, she didn't interrupt or steer, she let him answer, then squeezed his arm as they moved on, a gesture so simple it said everything about solidarity. Let's talk about Sleepyhead for a moment, because the film itself is the heart of why this all matters. It's a personal project, the kind that doesn't get made unless someone stakes their reputation on it. The story follows a man confronting the jagged edges of his youth, with childhood scenes woven in like nerves underneath the skin. That's where Sadie Dorek-Yujit comes in, carrying heavy moments that ask for truth without tricks. On set, the atmosphere was focused, meticulous, sometimes austere, which is common when you're juggling a performance and the responsibility of directing. Every close-up meant something. Every pause had weight. The bond between the two was professional but tender, the kind that grows in the quiet seconds before someone calls action. This is why that red carpet remark stung the audience a bit. The assumption had been that they were in step with one another. Backstage accounts suggest nothing scandalous, they say Barry's kept to himself between takes, often reviewing storyboards with the focus of someone solving a complex puzzle. He didn't joke much. He didn't linger when the camera cut. He'd crouch to meet the eye line of a child actor, deliver a few clear notes, and then retreat into silence again. Was that ego or the heavy discipline of a first-time director? The difference is a hairline fracture that tabloids love to pry open. One production assistant, who asked not to be named, mentioned that he watched everyone closely, not to intimidate, but because he respected the work too much to let it loosen. More than once, they heard him compliment Sadie's timing. And after the premiere? Rumor says he gave the boy a small token, not for social media, not for the cameras, just a private thank you wrapped in kindness. Who is Sadie Dorok-Yajit? He's 9, agile in front of a lens, and already a familiar face in commercials and series. Directors like his instinct, audiences like his unfiltered charm. Sleepyhead pushed him forward, and the spotlight hasn't left him since. Some commentators called the red carpet line a cute joke born of childhood honesty. Others decided it was a vaulting leap, maybe too bold, maybe perfectly timed. Either way, he has become an involuntary mirror reflecting the industry's favorite debate: what's the line between confidence and conceit? Celebrity reactions arrived as they always do, almost choreographed even when they aren't. Demet Özdemir wrote that children often deliver the purest version of truth, with no intention to harm. Hazal Kaya posted her love for child performers, insisting they simply let everything they feel pour out. And as the noise crescendoed, Barış added a single, spare post, a solitary dot on a blank field, a message without message that still said, "I'm here, I see, I won't play along." Meanwhile, Elson kept it graceful. She shared a still from the film, an out-of-focus hallway, a door left slightly open, and captioned it with one line, "Let the work speak." If there was a manifesto in the room, that was it. This isn't the first time a camera has misread restraint as arrogance. Barış has been at this long enough to know that absence of chatter can look like distance. When a career expands the way his has, from romantic leads shared with Elson to intense turns, and now to the pressure cooker of directing, a protective shell forms. In person, say those close to him, that shell is just concentration. He carries the set like a conductor carries the orchestra, his back straight, his face focused, his voice steady. To an observer rushing by with a headline to catch, that posture can look like a wall. To the people building the work with him, it's a promise not to let them fall. At the premiere, the look was classic: black suit, quiet sheen, lines that didn't try to compete with the attention. He posed with his agent and the crew, a constellation around a central star, and when the question about Sadie arrived, that half-smile reappeared. If you watched closely, you saw a fraction of a nod, a parent's patience in the body of a leading man. The cameras recorded it. Commentators debated it. Some said he's gotten used to these rumors, others said the measured reply gently dissolved the charge. Both things can be true. What did the team think as the clip erupted? According to whispers from inside, there was a moment of surprise, a beat of confusion, and then a collective shrug. They had a film to shepherd. A source familiar with the production insists that nothing was bruised. The story making the rounds claims Barış called Sadie that night and told him he was proud, that the performance glowed, that he doesn't take stray words personally. If that call happened, and several insisted did, then it was the most important scene of all, the one nobody filmed. There's also the question of what this means for Barış's next moves. He's continuing his television path with Esra Furya, and choosing projects more carefully than ever. Sleepyhead, as his first time in the director's chair, marks a pivot, and pivots are delicate. All it took was one sentence from a child to rattle the narrative for a day. Fame is fragile not because it breaks easily, but because it responds to the slightest pressure, changing shape like glass under heat. A word becomes a wildfire, a smile becomes a strategy, a pause becomes a confession. And where is Elson in all this? Right where you expect, beside him when it matters, away from the noise when it doesn't. On the carpet, she laughed softly when the questions got pointed, as if reminding everyone that they are human first and headlines second. She knows what it's like to be read as a persona rather than a person. Her history with Barış, the shared successes, the rumors that chased them, the glow that never seems to dim, makes her his most credible witness. If she looked calm, it's because she knew the work would outlast the whisper. As the conversation rolled through the night, a familiar divide emerged. Is ego simply confidence that refuses to apologize? Or is it the moment when self-belief forgets the room, the crew, the kid waiting for direction? Barry's career has been built on a careful balance, the accessibility of a leading man with the rigor of a craftsman. That balance can tilt depending on the angle of the lens. Maybe what Sadie saw was the mask of concentration kids don't have to wear yet. Maybe he caught the stillness adults mistake for coldness. Or maybe he observed something that will help a future version of him navigate sets with more warmth. Kids can be teachers without intending to teach. By midnight, the most persistent image left from the premiere wasn't a scandal, it was a scene. The two of them, the man and the boy, in a corridor just before a take, light spilling under a door. Barry's crouches, says something too soft to catch, then steps back. Action. A seconds-long moment that carried more truth than any trending line, because it showed the job unfolding in real time, fear, trust, and the quiet agreement to try. In the morning, the panic had cooled into analysis. Media sites parsed body language. Critics reassessed a performance they'd watched through the lens of the commotion. Fans posted side-by-side shots of Barry's early roles and these new frames, searching for a thread. Through it all, one certainty emerged: Sleepyhead had done its work. People were talking about craft, about tone, about how childhood leaves fingerprints on everything. A child's quip had piggybacked on that conversation, adding spice, but it hadn't derailed what the film set out to do. So, did the night prove that Barry's carries a towering ego? Or did it reveal the cost of taking your craft seriously in a world that sees noise as proof of life? Only the people who stood near the camera know the answer, and even they might disagree. What we can say is that he didn't take the bait, and neither did Elson. They let the story breathe and trusted the audience to separate spark from fire. A small sentence shook a big room. That's the power of premieres. That's the gamble of fame. And that's why you're here with us, searching for the heartbeat underneath the headlines. Tell us what you think. Was that moment about ego, or was it a misunderstanding caught in the glare? Drop your thoughts below. And before you go, remember to subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, like this video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens when the lights go down and the truth steps forward. Until next time, from all of us at Turkish Spotlight Secrets, stay curious, the stories never stop.